Right, so I'm going to make short videos to help you to recall, refresh your the information that you studied and learned in educational psychology, which is EDUC 120. So since this course, which is learning theory, is actually dependent on one particular set of information, which is developmental theories. So I'm just going to focus on that aspect and areas and the concepts which are associated with it. Um, so the first thing that we need to focus on is that we need to understand what is growth and what is development. So as we say, growth is your physically you are growing. Um, you see your limbs, the increase in size, the fingers, the hands, the feet, the legs, the arms. So they grow, but development is which you cannot see, but it is happening. So your growth is visible to you, to everyone around you, and your development can only be seen through some of the functions that you perform. It could be some solving a question, writing an essay, creating something with your hand, drawing, could be making something using what we call some kind of thread, all those things. So that is something which happens in your mind, but this is not invisible to people outside, but you can do that. So that means you have developed. Right? So growth and development go side by side, but doesn't mean that there are certain cases that because of biological um, issues, a person's growth stops. So the person is physically might be living year another year after year, but the development stops actually. So the person brain doesn't grow. So in that case, you we will see that. So we have cases such as where Down syndrome children, so they might be living for 15, 20, maybe plus years, but they might be growing in size, but we do not see that they are able to, they are developing. So that's why we have a different set of program for those people. So so that is the difference between growth and development. So we an ordinary human being grows and develops as well through his or her interaction with the surroundings. So in this course, we are going to, let's begin with the developmental theories. So there are developmental such as biological development theories, as you can see. So according to biological development theories, you are going to start growing and you reach a peak, which is your adulthood. And after that, um, the decline starts. So by decline mean you are not growing anymore. You're not going to increase in your height. You're not going to increase in terms of you may increase in weight, but that is not. It is because of some other factors, not the growth factor, right? The length of your hands or the fingers or the legs, it is not going to increase anymore. So that is, so it is going to stop. So in other words, they are saying when we say decline, it doesn't mean it is going to decrease, but it means it is not going to, it won't grow any longer. It won't grow anymore. So, but with the passage of time, as we grow older, we see that a lot of changes happens and all that energy, the biological function, they stops. Their functions decreases, right? And that is why, if you look at the present situation, people who have been affected by COVID-19 happens to be the elderly, people who are in their old age, and because of their immune system was weak, so they contracted COVID-19 virus, and many of them died if they were not provided um, needed support and medicine in a certain hospital. So biological models also suggest that we uh, that these changes are sequenced. So it's not that we are going to today we are I'm here and the next I'm going to be here. So it is going to be an inch or maybe a few centimeters per year or something. So it is going to be sequenced. They are going to see that when a person is growing, let's say. Um, so you can see that a certain group of individuals, if they are when they are 10 years old, this is how they look like. When they are 12 years old, that is how they look like. That's what the biological body can do. This is what a biological system can do, and this is what the biological system cannot do. Right. So these are biological model. The other one is socio-cultural developmental model. So as the word says socio-cultural, so it looks at a development actually in terms of culture and the society. So when we look at socio-cultural, we are not looking at that I'm growing physically, people can see me growing, increasing in height, or the length of the different limbs in my body are going to increase, but it doesn't look at the growth or the development in that way. It looks at how we conceptualize or conceived our roles in culture, in our environment, and how we perform those roles, right? So that is, and it also what we call socio-cognitive development as well, where we look at how our cognition actually shapes our social roles and sociological position in our family, in a ethnic group, in a religious group, and how we take up different roles in our groups. And there is no aspect of decreasing. So we, as we are performing certain roles, so we are not going to start decreasing at any way or at any point in a life. So it's more of that you are performing different roles in your life. So the cognition is also here. So that what are some of the things that you can do, some of the things that you cannot do, some of the things that you can understand, some of the things that you can learn. So that is cognition. It also tells. So it doesn't decline as you grow older or as we grow, but it increases, right? Our ability to think, our ability to analyze, it increases as we grow older, because we move away from what we call, we passes through sensory motor stages to what we call formal operational stage, right? So that is, then we have ecological model. So it is, they say that it's an interacting system which is found around a person, and the person's growth is actually, and the development is actually influenced by lots of factors around it. We will see that in a while through a diagram. And then we have that age or the growth or development, whether it is biological development, socio-cultural, or the cognitive development. All these development theories are saying that there are stages. We go through different stages, and we cannot jump, we cannot move, or we cannot skip a stage. So we have to pass through stages. So different people may move, may stay at a stage for a shorter period of time as compared to others, and some people may stay at a particular stage a longer period of time. It may change from person to person how much time a person is going to spend at a certain developmental stage. But each one of us is going to go through development stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and then we go on to reaching the height or the peak of that development, according whatever stage is given in the development theory. So psychosocial talks about social development. We will look at what those ideas are. Now, as we say, all the theories are stage developmental theories because they focus on that we passes through different steps, different stages, whether it is psychosocial, whether it is moral, or whether it is cognitive development. So all these are actually what we call stage developmental theories, or what we call lifespan developmental theories. So aging involves biological and cognitive change. And now, uh, so aging doesn't mean physical aging as we are growing physically. We are, of course, aging. So 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, 35. So we are aging. But cognitively, we are also aging. It means that our ability to receive plenty of information process that might be decreasing day by day. But though we may not say that, but once you are in your high school or college, your ability to process quite a lot of information is much more than when you are 45 or 50, right? Because so you can receive lots of information, you can process that information, you can learn lots of new things, you can learn a new language, you can learn a new skill. But when you are 40 or 50, it becomes difficult to learn a new language, though it's not impossible, but we still can learn. But you can learn, it takes longer than um, for someone who might be in his or her 20s to learn a language or a new skill. So that is how we learn. It also affected as we are growing, right? Then fluid intelligence is another concept, and this is cognitive processing, how fast we can do that. Then crystallized intelligence, which is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is the information that we receive, that we can receive from our surrounding, and wisdom is what do we do with that information, right? So that is what we call crystallized intelligence. Now, as you can see, biological development model says that from the time of birth till the time of death, there is a pattern. There is a certain pattern that you can see here, and so there is a timeline here. So this is your what you can do, what you cannot do, adulthood, and from there you start. This is the maximum that you can do, and after that it starts decline, which is physically we start. There are a lot of function that we cannot perform, fatigue, tired, our ability to maybe physically we are getting weaker, immune system is getting weaker if you're not taking care of ourselves. So that is what they say is the biological or maturation model of development. We are maturing because we are growing physically. Now, if you look at, there are few people who, Freud is one of them. So Freud, he identifies what we call psychosexual development. And he says that the very first 6 years of a person's life are very important because those years shape his or her future life. And though some people agree with this idea, some people disagree, but he's still a very known, very influential person or theorist in psychology. Then Piaget is another person who is quite famous. Is his theory of cognitive development, which is the foundation of learning theories course as well, and different aspects of learning. So he's also presented his theory, which is lifespan development theory, and he's presented that the cognition or the cognitive development is a lifespan development idea. We start when we are born into this world, and we stops when we die. So that is the idea. Then ecological model, so that is says we will look at ecological model in a while. So ecological model, as you can see in this picture, so this is you, or this is me, this is I, and all these circles are this culture, the system, the family, the society, country, the world, all things around, the environment, the seas, the planets, and everything. And there are different things, as you see. This is me, my personal settings, my family, my school, my workplace, my community, my religious place. Now, then there are what we call microsystems. Microsystems are interacting personal settings. So this is microsystem, that is me, my microsystem, that is mesosystem. The second circle is of mesosystem, which is the interacting person setting. I am interacting with other individuals who are not part of my family, who are not part of my neighborhood, who are not part, who may not, they may not be part of my religious group, but since they live in a society, so they actually form my interactive or interacting group, right? As you may see on FCCU campus, so there are a lot of people that you're interacting, and you didn't know them before you started, and you may not have known them for even when you were on the campus, other than when you were doing a certain course. And once the course was over, you never met that person, you never called that person, even you forgot his or her name as well. So, but and there were a lot of other people that you were interacting, because you might have taken a couple of courses with him or her. So you might start interacting, you might have developed some relationship, some kind of rapport with that person, and you might be calling, you might be going out with that person. So that is your interacting personal setting. So that is the second. As you see, this is a bigger circle. So it depends your school. So you were in primary school, then you went to secondary school, then you went to college, then you are in the university, you might go abroad for a study. So this cycle is bigger than your personal system, which is your family, your brothers and sisters and cousins and tayas and chachu and kala and pupi and all those. Um, so that is mesosystem. Then the third one is exosystem. Right? This is ecological model. We are looking at ecological model. Now, exosystem, as you can see here, this is the third circle, which is the wider institutions, such as the government and the business. So, and this is quite big, as you can see. This is quite big. So, government, you are going to, even when you are part of your personal settings, you have to interact with a lot of government institutions. You have to go to maybe some government office to get yourself registered, to get CNIC, to get a passport, to get some kind of form, to go to a board, to take your exam. You went to a maybe what we call uh, different government offices that are there for different functions. You may have utilized different state facilities such as hospitals, roads you are using, right? Parks that you are using. So those are wider institutions that government has established for the people to use, and that might be business. So they are. It could be managed by the state, or it could be managed by individuals, but they are wider institution where even strangers can come and they have certain kind of relationship, which is actually founded on business. You are there to perform a certain business, and once the business is done, you leave that place. Then the next, as you can see, the next circle is macro system. Macro means big, large. This is the largest one, and it says your culture, so your language, your beliefs. Now this is also influencing your development, right? The language that you speak, the beliefs that you have. So the beliefs might be shaped by your religion, it might be shaped by your philosophy, it might be shaped by your culture, it might be shaped by your family, your community, maybe your ethnicity. So that is your development. So as you can see, this person, who is, when the person born, he was in a micro system, which was the family, the parents, the brothers, the siblings. But as the person grew, the person moved into mesosystem. The person started interacting with the mesosystem, and as the person grew a little more, the person started interacting with the exosystem. And as the person grew to its fullest, the person started interacting with macro system, which is the wider system, and that is culture and belief. Now, the age, this is another idea that we must look at. So age, as you can see, is associated with your development, your physical age as well. How old are you? That's a question we ask. So we count the number of years, so 365 days, the number of years or the number of days you have been into this. If you have lived for 365 days, that means you can say we have another what we call term for 365 days, which is a year, right? So that is how we define ourselves. But age is what we call chronological order. That's what I'm referring to. I was born on so and so day, and this is 2020, so I might be 50 years old, I might be 40 years old, I might be 30 years old, I might be 20 years old, 25. So chronological. And then changes in age related, so the changes could be seen as your height, the body mass. So these are the most aberrant changes which are associated with chronological age. Chronology means in sequence. Then biological age, right? So that is your body, your physical age that you are, which is affected by your genetic as well as genetic factors and personal environment factors such as diet, exercise, health, your biological age as well. So, for example, um, it is believed, I can give you some few examples. It is believed that Southeast Asian, in Southeast Asian countries such as South Korea and Japan and Taiwan and in some parts of China, the average height of boys, the men, have increased a few inches, and that is because for the last 30-40 years they have been eating healthy food, good food, nutritious food. And on the other hand, the body, the weight, and the average height of people in maybe in African countries or some Asian countries has decreased or is stagnant because of the food that they were eating, because of the environment they were living in. So all those factors actually affect your biological age as well, and the factor. So it is true that genetic genes decide how tall you can be, but with the tall, a lot of other things also have to develop. Your muscles in your arms and body and legs and thighs and all that. So that is only possible if you eat healthy food, if you eat enough protein, vitamins, minerals. So if you're not eating that, so it is going to affect you, the system your body can perform, the biology of your body, right? And that is what they call patterns of longevity. So either you are going to have a longer life. Japanese, they say, or the people in Southeast Asia, they live quite long, um, um, as compared to many other parts of the world. Then social age, it includes so personal attitudes, behaviors, and trust. People, we start acquiring these attitudes, behaviors, and interests when we start interacting with people around us, maybe in schools, maybe in a community center, maybe in a park. We see people doing different things, we imitate them, and we follow what they're doing. That's how we start develop our taste for a certain game or a certain hobby, such as drawing or dance or singing, learning or playing a certain music instrument. There are plenty of videos where young children are shown playing different music instruments, playing different sports. So that is the social age, which is actually because of the socialization. And then we have psychological age, how, so you must have heard this, and you might have used this phrase also, the psychology. I do understand your psychology, right? The person is psychologically weak, right? The person is psychologically not developed. So this is we are telling to others that I am matured. So I'm talking about maturity. How do I interact with others? How do I behave in a certain situation, behave in a certain environment? So if I can do what I should be doing, then that means I'm physically, psychologically mature. But if I'm not doing what I should be doing in a certain environment, then that means I'm a psychologically immature person, right? So we will look at, and that is, it also shows your intelligence level, how intelligent you are, because we have emotional intelligence, we have cognitive, we have your numbers intelligence, and all sorts of intelligence. Psychological age is also associated with your intelligence. Then functional age is what they call integrated measure of performance, such as chronological, biological, social, and psychological aspects. So, so as they say, functional age tries to define people in terms of their actual abilities rather than the length of time they have been alive. What is it that they can do? What is it they cannot do? And sometimes you might have seen someone studying or attending university when he or she is maybe 15 or 16 years old. There have been some examples there. But we know that if I look at myself, or if you look at yourself, you know that you reach university when you are in your maybe early 20s, late teens, early 20s. So, so we are looking at what is it, their abilities, their actual abilities, rather than the length of time. So we're not looking at how much time they have taken to develop a certain set of skills and knowledge, but what is it that they have learned actually. Some of the developmental theories. Psychosocial development theory is Erikson's idea. Now, Erikson has given 8 different stages, or he called crises. Now, according to, as you can see in this table, there are 8 crises: trust versus mistrust, autonomy. This is positive, trust positive, mistrust negative, autonomy positive, doubt negative. So you can see on this side, trust, autonomy, initiative, industry, identity, intimacy, generativity. These are positive attributes, characteristics, while mistrust, doubt, guilt, inferiority, confusion, isolation, self-absorption, these are negative characteristics. So according to Erikson, these are the crises that a person faces when person is at infancy. Now, though Erikson hasn't assigned any, Erikson did assign a certain what we call age level, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, something like that. But the critics to Erikson's theory say that this, we cannot say that the person is in infancy when he or she is between 1 and 2 or 1 and 3. Right? The person could be in infancy when the person is 5 years old or 6 years old, because it reflects this crisis. So if the person is at this particular developmental stage, the crisis is trust, to trust one's situation, oneself, the people who are around that person. So the person developed that, and if something happens, there is a crisis, and the person cannot develop trust, the person is going to develop this attribute, which is mistrusting everyone around him or her. Now, this mistrust will move into early childhood as a doubt. The person will doubt everyone around him. And if this doubt doesn't changes or move into positive side, which is this side, then of course this will stay in the negative arena, which is guilt and inferiority, and person might end up as uh, maybe in old age, in his or her old age, saying, I am a failure, I didn't do anything, I couldn't do anything. The person might blame himself, might blame others. But if you look at the schools and the college and the universities, what they have been doing, they have, for example, counseling center. So you might have any of the negative attribute at any time. So the counseling center is supposed to bring you back to the negative side. Right? So in schools, colleges, universities, so they have these things. The students, they may have any of it, they may develop this attribute, but if it is not catered, if it's not looked into at that particular time, then it is going to affect the individual and of course affect the family and the community and the society. So these are different ages: play age, school age, adolescence, identity versus role confusion, young adulthood, intimacy versus isolation. So middle aged and old age. So these are different what we call stages given by Erickson's. Now these are psychosocial development theory. As I said, so we are not looking at, so this is important to recall and revise or refresh, though there is very little reference to this theory when we will be looking at the learning theories. Now, the other developmental theory, which is cognitive development, is the Kohlberg's theory of development. As I explained in today's class also, this is one of the important theories of moral development, along with Piaget's. So as you see, there are 3 stages, and these are the characteristics of each stage. Pre-conventional, conventional, we have, you must have heard the word conventional wisdom, conventional weapons, conventional war. So pre-conventional, right? So conventional is people are motivated. So since these are characteristics of moral development stage, so I'm not so pre-conventional is before you reach this stage, and that is people are making moral choices, what they do, what they do not do, and those decisions, the choices are based on either rewards, because by taking or doing something they will be rewarded, or by not doing that, they might, by not doing it, they might be rewarded for that. So if they do, they are rewarded. If they do not show a certain behavior, they are also rewarded. But there are certain behaviors unacceptable which they show or demonstrate, then they are punished for that. Right? For example, you are in a classroom and your teacher is teaching and you start shouting or you start dancing. So this is unacceptable behavior. So you will be punished. But if you are listening to teacher and teacher asks us question and you respond, teacher might say, excellent, very good. Right? So that is a reward for showing or doing what is expected of you. Right? So that is then conventional. So you people, we all are motivated by obedience and respect for rules and authority. So we want to have traffic rules. We have certain rules of traffic. When we are in a bank, we have a certain rule of how to open an account. So there are certain practices and procedures, and we follow those. And the purposes of that is to make our life easier, right? So we become obedient, right? Because following those rules is going to make our life easier. For example, standing in queue will help the bank and the people to process the whatever they are doing, whether the people are withdrawing money, whether they are people are depositing money, to make that withdrawal and deposit procedure easier for everyone, for the customers and for those people who are working in the bank also. Like this, for example, supermarket, you go and then you wait in line and you wait for your turn to get your things, what we call till, and then you pay your bill. Yeah, you wait, and that is what we call conventional wisdom, because this is what you think it's going to, this is the rule. By following these rules, I'm going to tell others that I am a good citizen, I am a law-abiding individual, and I am a well-wisher of everyone because my actions are not harming others. Right? They are contributing to make my life easier and others' life easier. The third is post-conventional. This is where you move beyond your personal, what we call something makes you happy, but you look at what is good for everyone, right? And not many people actually fall in this category. Most of the people actually sticks to the first two, and very few people reaches the final stage. But it is also suggested that we keep moving between these 3 stages. At the same time, same day, we might be doing something because of pre-conventional, we'll be doing something because we'll be rewarded for that, or we are not doing something because we know that if I do, I will be punished for that. And then the same, after maybe a minute or two, I might have taken a decision because of the conventional development stage, and then I might have taken a decision because of I might be behaving as a person who is at the post-conventional moral stage. So people keep moving or fluctuating between these three stages. Stage that I'm going to cover in this one is Piaget's cognitive development. Now, the moral development stage doesn't have, it's not going to say a lot about learning theories, but that is important. We recall, revise that information. Now, Piaget's theory of cognitive development, as I said the other day and today also, that it has four stages: sensory motor stage and pre-operational stage, complete operation, and formal operation. You who are taking this course are actually at the formal operational stage. Now, we will see it on Wednesday whether you are there, because I will have an activity in the class and I will be seeing whether you are there. Now, sensory motor stage. Now, as we say, cognitive development is development of your brain, cognition, right? How you can process information, how many information you can process, what kind of information you can process. That is all cognitive development, right? So the very first stage is sensory motor stage, though it has given this also 0 to 2 years. So it may be true, it may. So that is one of the what we call uh, criticism on this theory as well, that this is a rigid state, but it may not be true. Now that's according to this one, we receive information or we learn and we process different information in our cognition, the information that we receive through our senses, sensory senses, and the motor, movement. Motor means movement. So the information that reaches our cognition, it is through senses. We hear, we see, we smell, we touch, or the motor, the movement, right? So we experience the world through movement and senses. We learn that objects continue to exist when not in view. For example, you must have seen someone doing with a small child peekaboo, and the person shows the thing and then hide the thing at the back and say, oh, it has gone, disappeared. But as the child grows older, child becomes aware that the thing that was shown to him or her a little while ago is still there. It might be hidden somewhere, but it has not disappeared. So that is what we call, they become aware of this. Earlier, they were saying that it has gone, and they began to represent behaviors through mental imagery or language. So they started saying, for example, whatever word they have given to water, they might say that water, they might make that sound or the noise, water, milk, if they're hungry, if they are wet, if they need something. So they will be able to make that, they will be able to say this either through some of the noise, maybe crying, or maybe say some word, right? So that is the first stage. The second stage is pre-operational stage, and according to this, the children who are in actually kindergarten, we have kindergarten or pre-primary, this is where the children goes, and that is where they started making mental world model of the world around them, right? So they are in kindergarten, they are playing, they're interacting with others, and they are playing in groups, they are drawing different things, they are making using blocks, making something, they are what we call separating different objects of colors, shapes, maybe size, and that is, they are becoming familiar what is in the world around them. And they are still egocentric. What is, everything has to be around them, I am important. So they see the world according to their viewpoint, and that's why at this stage, where children do not share things, they want to have everything for themselves, and they do not share things with other children or with the other older siblings or the younger siblings. And they can perform mental operations such as addition. So only thing they can do is Either they can name different objects around them, table, chair, map, plate, cup, all sorts of things, but they can see and they use in their everyday life. Or they can use addition functions. That is the very first thing the children can do is the addition mathematical function, adding 2 candies plus 2 candy, 2 rupees plus 5 rupees, something like that. And the third stage is what they call concrete operational. This is when the children are in primary school. So the primary school is where they learn a lot of rules and the principles um, of the world. For example, the class principle: do not make noise, sit like this, sit like that, do not wear this kind of clothes, do not wear this type of shoes. So all these are rules, and they become aware of it, that when they're going to school they have to wear a certain uniform, and then they have to behave in a certain way. And that's what the world is going to be, where there are a lot of rules and procedures and practices, and they must live in this world following those principles and the practices and the rules. And then they're able to understand the rules that they not only using in their lives in school and at home, but also but mostly actually they become familiar with the, for example, when they go to a mosque with their parents, or when they go to a church or to mandir or to gurdwara, they observe their parents and they see what is happening. So they develop this idea, this information, how to behave in us when they are at a worship place, how to behave when they're in a school, how to behave when they're in a hospital. So that is because of their direct experiences of a certain place or a certain rule or a practice or a procedure, they learn that. So they still cannot do they can do lots of things. For example, they can multiply, they can subtract, they can divide, 4 divided by 2, something like that. But there are still a lot of mathematical functions. They cannot generalize. They can only do what we call, teacher would write few questions on the board and they can answer that. But if teacher is going to ask a very a little complex word problem, which still requires void, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division mathematical function, but the children at this stage or the people at this stage may not be able to do it because they are still unable to generalize the principles of mathematical functions onto other situations, right? So, so that is, it comes when they are at the formal operational stage. For example, you are at the formal operational stage, so you can read a lot of information, you can sit for a longer period of time, you can read more pages, you can process lots of information, abstract information. That is important concept here: abstract information in a scientific way, in a sequential logical way. So and each stage, the time that you spend learning something varies. When you are at the sensory stage, you hardly, your attention span is few seconds, maybe few seconds. And that's why children hardly stays at one position when they are at this stage. Just observe younger children, they hardly sit at one place for a minute unless and until they are given a mobile phone, right, where they see something is moving. And then pre-operation stage, the attention span. So attention span is the time that you can spend or concentrate doing an activity, right? So pre-operational stage, you might be able to spend 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe. And then when you are in school, primary school, that's where they have group work and activities, and sometimes the attention span might be 8 minutes, 10 minutes. That's why there are a lot of activities in primary schools where teacher changes activity after every 10, 15 minutes. If they were reading, they might be writing. If they were writing, teacher ask them to speak, right? So they do so all these are different. Reading is a different activity, writing is a different activity. Um, so after every 10, 15 minutes, the activity changes. At your age, you are able to sit for unlimited number of minutes and hours. If it is an interesting book, for example, if you're a Harry Potter fan, or maybe some other writer, if you find his or her book, you will sit for hours and read, right? So that is interest. So if something is interesting, you may sit for hours and read. So that is there so you can receive, process, and arrange information in your brain, which could be countless, right? So you are able to generate hypotheses, what you see, what you observe through experiments, um, Pythagoras theorem, trigonometry, angle, the sum of angle of a triangle is 180. So all these are hypotheses. So you are able to understand that. Another concept that we looked at today was the related to the same theory of development was key ideas which are relevant to this, which is the first one is schema. And according to this, schema is actually a file which is created by your brain when you see something, and you have schema the moment either you are born, or maybe as the psychologists say, or the doctors say these days, that as soon as a child is conceived, child starts what we call child start constructing knowledge about his world through the information that he or she receives in mother's womb, right? If a mother is stressed, the child can feel, receive that information. If the mother is happy, if the mother is what we call physically abused, the child can feel it, and this affects the child when the child comes out in this world. So the schema is a file that our brain creates when we see something. And I gave an example of a table. Now the table, and if you look at this, the table mostly, the children see a table which is rectangular. Now we have round tables as well, right? We have triangle tables, and by putting together 2, 3 triangle tables, it might become a rectangle, right? Or a square. So there are different kinds of tables, but there is a schema of table which is used to put things on, and we use, and we can study, we can use it, we can put our books, we can put a lot of decoration pieces, and there are multiple uses of table. But if they have a bed also, which is a rectangular bed, then of course the difference between the table schema and the bed schema is how hard it is. The bed cannot be as hard as the table surface. The bed surface is supposed to be soft. The mattress is supposed to be soft, because that has a different purpose. So that is schema. So as soon as you see or hear some information, you create a file in your brain, right? And as you grow older, that file actually accumulates more information around it, around that particular idea, and the file increases, right? The information increases. Now it becomes easier for you to retrieve information from that file if the information is organized in a certain orderly way. Then you can quickly recall information. If the information is not recalled, if the information is not organized in an orderly way, then of course you struggle to recall information faster. Right? So you need a lot of cues there. So that is important. So schema is a file that is created in our brain around a certain object or a theme or something that we see or hear. Now, as you grow older, the schemas are already created, so we keep receiving more information, right? So when we receive information, for example, table. I saw a table which had, let's say, which was of a pentagon shape. That is still a table. So I am going to add this information about table in the already created schema of table, which has table could be rectangular, triangle, or square, right? And I have seen another kind of table with 4 legs, but this time I saw just 1 leg, or 2 legs, or 3 legs, right? So all this information will be added to the already created table schema, and we call that accommodation. So I am accommodating, I'm fixing, I'm putting new information into the already existed or created schema, accommodation. If the information that I have received or saw, if it cannot fix in the already created schema, our brain creates another schema, and that process is called assimilation. Right? So assimilation, incorporation of new information into existing schema, and accommodation, adaptation of an existing schema in the light of new information. So we adapt the existing schema. So these are example there. And then, as I said, equilibration. Our brain is supposed to be at a state of equilibrium all the time, but whenever we receive information, it is in disequilibrium position. It is so that information either has to be assimilated or they have to be accommodated. So whatever happens, so once this assimilation or accommodation has happened, this process has happened, then the brain will again go to equilibrium state. So disequilibrium is the inability to maintain the schema, to make sense of the information that I have received. So if I can, through these two processes, assimilation and accommodation, can make sense either to create a new one or to fix, put it in the already created schema, then again, my brain will go into equilibrium position. So there'll be a stable concept of a certain thing, right? And disequilibrium, if the information cannot be placed, I will still be confused where, what is it? What can I call this thing? Right? For example, there are a lot of new, the other day they were saying that they have discovered another fish somewhere in Amazon. Now, since they couldn't name, so they named it. So it is, so they must have found that there is one, but it cannot be fit into the already created or the named species which are found in Amazon. So they gave it a new name. So then, of course, that was again trying to go back to equilibrium position. Okay, the last concept in here is Vygotsky's idea of zone of proximal development. I also explained it today. I'm not sure whether there is any image here of zone of proximal development, but you can find it. It's there in the reading. You may see it. Now, a zone of proximal development says that every individual at a certain time has a certain capacity to develop, which is known as proximal development, maximum development. Now, that is, for example, when you start your class 3 or class, let's say class 5, the very first day of your class 5, says that you have to study your class 5 math book. And by the time you finish your class 5, you should have learned all the content which is there in math book. So with the help, so they are presuming that you are capable of learning all that content, which is proximal development. So you have the capacity. So the teachers are going to help you, support you to learn this by providing what we call scaffolding the content to you, by providing the content in chunks, by providing or presenting the content from simple to complex, right? So you have seen scaffolding on the campus. A new building is constructed, so they have put scaffolding there. And whenever a new house is constructed and you must have seen a new building is being constructed, so they must have put scaffolding to support the construction workers to go up and down, to stand and do work and to work. So, so you will be supported. So that support is what they call scaffolding. And from class 5, day 1, the last day of class 5, so you have reached the point of proximal development with the help of the teacher, with the help of the what we call textbook, and with the help of teaching aids that teachers used in the classroom, with the help of teaching strategies that the teachers used with the help of charts, the models. All these were part of the scaffolding that teachers use to help you to learn, right? That is what they call zone of proximal development. So at the end of last day of class 5, so it becomes your first day of class 6. The first day of class 6, you are going to study class 6 textbook, maths textbook. Now you are there at point 0. So you have to reach to point, let's say you are in point A, you need to get to point B. Point B is your zone of proximal development. So point A is your where you are, you do not know. So the teacher is going to help you to learn all that content to get to point B through using different scaffolding. Right? So that is what they call zone of proximal development. Now, another thing which has replaced teachers or which has become a tool and people are using in with the development in technology is technology. So we have, for example, if you remember the technological development evolution, the very first time people started learning language the way native speaks when they heard radio, because the radio they could hear the British speaking English in British accent, or American speaking English in American accent, or Australian speaking in Australian accents. So that was radio, but there was no possibility of recording. So when that technology developed, that reached to all of the people, and people were able to listen to over and over. So with the development of technology, this has been helping people to learn, and also it has been providing them scaffolding also. The technology became a tool to scaffold or present the learning, or present a scaffolding to learn the required content. So we have these days, we have different web sites such as Khan Academy, different YouTube is full of YouTube, Vimeo, all these platforms are full of videos where they are teaching how to make this, how to make that 5 minutes craft, all those channels there, they're teaching people how to make something, how to draw something, how blah, blah. So I cannot list all of it. So that is what they call, they are still, information is scaffolded, but it is, the medium is different this time around.